Welcome to Story Narrations. Today we embark on a captivating journey through our new series titled My Revenge on My Cheating Ex-Girlfriend. This tale unfolds the life of a man who, after being heartbroken by betrayal, finds his path to personal success and happiness. Join us as we explore themes of love, redemption, and resilience across 50 stirring chapters. Each episode promises to stir a range of emotions, from the depths of despair to the peaks of joy. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be immersed in a story of transformation and triumph. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay updated with each chapter of this enthralling story. Let the journey begin. The sun cast long shadows across the city skyline as I sat in my corner office, the hum of New York City's bustling streets drifting through the open window. My fingers tapped impatiently on the polished mahogany desk, the weight of memories heavy on my mind. 10 years had passed since Samantha, my once beloved girlfriend, had shattered my heart into a million irreparable fragments. At 34 years old, I thought I had it all figured out. A promising career in finance, a circle of loyal friends, and Samantha, the woman I envisioned spending the rest of my life with. But fate had other plans. It was a crisp autumn evening when Samantha dropped the bombshell that would forever change the course of my life. Tears glistened in her eyes as she confessed to betraying our trust, her words slicing through the air like a dagger to my heart. She had cheated on me with Alex, a supposed friend who had been a regular fixture in our social circle for years. I remember the disbelief that washed over me, followed by a tidal wave of anger and hurt. How could she do this to me? To us? I had thought our love was invincible, a force of nature that could weather any storm. But I was wrong. As Samantha's confession echoed in my mind, I felt a surge of anger rise within me, threatening to consume me whole. How could she have been so selfish, so reckless with my heart? The memories of our time together flashed before my eyes, each one tainted by the bitter sting of betrayal. But amidst the anger and hurt, there was a deep-seated sadness that lingered like a shadow in the recesses of my soul. I mourned not only the loss of Samantha, but also the shattered dreams and broken promises that had once held our relationship together. In the days and weeks that followed, I tried to make sense of the wreckage of my life. I threw myself into my work, burying my pain beneath a mountain of spreadsheets and business meetings. But no matter how hard I tried to escape, the memories of Samantha and the betrayal that had torn us apart haunted me like a relentless specter. I watched helplessly as Samantha and Alex flaunted their newfound happiness for the world to see, their love a slap in the face to everything we had once shared. It was as if our entire relationship had been nothing more than a fleeting illusion, a mirage that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. As the years passed, I tried to move on, to rebuild my life from the ashes of the past. I threw myself into my career, climbing the corporate ladder with a relentless determination, fueled by a burning desire for success. But no matter how far I rose, the scars of Samantha's betrayal remained etched into the fabric of my being, a constant reminder of the pain I had endured. Now, at 44 years old, I sat in my office overlooking the city that had become my sanctuary, a bastion of strength in a world fraught with uncertainty. I had long since closed the door on the past, choosing instead to focus on the future that lay before me. I had found love again in the arms of Kate, a woman whose unwavering support and unconditional love had helped me heal the wounds of the past. Together, we had built a life filled with laughter and joy, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And then there was Kaylee, our precious daughter whose infectious laughter and boundless curiosity brought light into even the darkest corners of my soul. She was a constant reminder that no matter how far we fall, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. As I looked out over the city that had witnessed my rise and fall, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The scars of the past may never fully heal, but they had become a part of who I was, a testament to the strength and resilience that lay within me. And as I gazed out at the sprawling metropolis below, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, armed with the knowledge that I had survived the worst that life could throw at me and emerged stronger on the other side. For I was no longer the broken man Samantha had left behind all those years ago. I was a survivor, a warrior, forged in the fires of adversity, ready to take on whatever the future had in store. And as I closed the chapter on the past, I did so with a renewed sense of purpose and determination, ready to write the next chapter of my life on my own terms. Enjoying this story? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more captivating tales just like this one. Your support means the world! The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room as I awoke to the sound of birds chirping outside. Stretching lazily, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me, a feeling of peace and fulfillment that had become a familiar companion in recent years. As I glanced at the clock on the bedside table, I realized with a start that it was already past 7 a.m. Time seemed to slip through my fingers these days, each moment precious and fleeting. With a sigh, I swung my legs out of bed and made my way to the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee beckoning me like an old friend. Kate was already up, humming softly to herself as she prepared breakfast. Her long auburn hair cascaded in waves down her back, her radiant smile lighting up the room. She glanced up as I entered, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she teased, setting a steaming cup of coffee in front of me. "You're going to be late for your meeting if you don't hurry up." I chuckled, savoring the rich aroma of the coffee as I took a sip. "I'll be fine," I assured her, planting a kiss on her cheek. "Besides, I wouldn't miss breakfast with you and Kaylee for anything." As if on cue, our daughter came bounding into the kitchen, her laughter filling the room like music. At 7 years old, Kaylee was a whirlwind of energy and enthusiasm, her boundless curiosity a constant source of joy and wonder. "Good morning, Daddy," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around my waist in a tight hug. "Are we going to the park today?" I ruffled her hair affectionately, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Maybe later, sweetheart," I replied, glancing at Kate for confirmation. "But right now, Daddy has to go to work." Kaylee pouted for a moment before brightening up again. "Okay, Daddy," she said cheerfully. "Have a good day at work." With a final kiss for Kate and Kaylee, I grabbed my briefcase and headed out the door, the cool morning air invigorating as I made my way to the office. The streets were alive with activity, the city pulsing with the rhythm of life as people hurried to and fro, lost in their own little worlds. As I entered the building, I felt a surge of pride swell within me. This was my domain, my kingdom in the heart of the city. Over the years, I had worked tirelessly to climb the corporate ladder, each rung a testament to my determination and perseverance. And now, at 44 years old, I had finally reached the pinnacle of success. I was a respected figure in the world of finance, my name synonymous with wealth and power. But more importantly, I was happy, truly happy, in a way I had never thought possible. As I settled into my office, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The pain and heartache of the past seemed like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the love and joy that filled my life each and every day. I thought back to the dark days after Samantha's betrayal, the endless nights spent drowning my sorrows in a sea of alcohol and regret. I had hit rock bottom, my world crumbling around me as I struggled to make sense of the wreckage of my life. But out of the darkness, a glimmer of hope had emerged. Kate had entered my life like a breath of fresh air, her kindness and compassion a balm for my wounded soul. With her by my side, I had found the strength to pick up the pieces and start anew. Together, we had built a life filled with love and laughter, each day a precious gift to be cherished and savored. And when Kaylee came into our lives, our family was complete, a shining beacon of hope and happiness in a world fraught with uncertainty. As I sat at my desk, lost in thought, my thoughts turned to Samantha and Alex. I couldn't help but wonder what had become of them, the couple whose betrayal had set me on the path to my newfound happiness. A pang of sympathy tugged at my heart as I imagined Samantha's plight, trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who had once promised her the world. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction knowing that justice had been served, that Alex had finally reaped what he had sown. But amidst the satisfaction, there was also a sense of sadness, a recognition of the pain and suffering that had led Samantha to this point. I couldn't help but wonder if things could have been different, if we had taken a different path all those years ago. But then I shook my head, banishing the thought from my mind. The past was the past, and there was no point in dwelling on what might have been. I had a beautiful wife, a loving daughter, and a successful career. What more could I ask for? With a renewed sense of purpose, I turned my attention to the tasks at hand, eager to tackle the challenges of the day with the same determination and drive that had brought me to where I was today. The future was bright, filled with endless possibilities, and I was ready to seize them with both hands. The city streets buzzed with activity as I stepped out of the office building, the familiar hustle and bustle of New York City a comforting backdrop to my thoughts. It had been a long day filled with meetings and negotiations, but as I made my way home, a sense of contentment washed over me. Kate and Kaylee would be waiting for me, their smiles lighting up the darkness like beacons of hope. It was moments like these that made all the hard work worth it, reminding me of the true meaning of success. As I walked, lost in thought, my mind wandered back to Samantha. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss, a sense of unease that prickled at the back of my neck like an itch I couldn't scratch. It had been weeks since Samantha had reached out to me, her voice trembling with uncertainty as she confessed her desire to divorce Alex. At the time, I had been sympathetic, offering her my support and guidance as she navigated the treacherous waters of marital discord. But now, as I replayed our conversation in my mind, a seed of doubt began to take root. Something about Samantha's story didn't add up, a nagging suspicion that lurked in the shadows, waiting to be brought into the light. With a sigh, I pushed the thought aside, chiding myself for entertaining such paranoid notions. Samantha was a grown woman capable of making her own decisions, and if she had chosen to reach out to me for help, who was I to question her motives? But try as I might to quell the rising tide of doubt, it continued to gnaw at me like a persistent mosquito buzzing in my ear. There was something about Samantha's situation that didn't sit right with me, a sense of unease that refused to be ignored. Lost in my thoughts, I almost didn't see her standing there on the street corner, her figure illuminated by the glow of the street lamp. Samantha. My heart skipped a beat as I caught sight of her, her presence sending a jolt of adrenaline coursing through my veins. She looked different somehow, her once vibrant demeanor muted by the weight of the world bearing down on her shoulders. "Samantha?" I called out tentatively, my voice barely more than a whisper in the cacophony of the city streets. She turned to face me, her eyes wide with surprise as she took in my presence. For a moment, we stood there in awkward silence, the air thick with tension as we grappled with the weight of our shared history. "John," she finally said, her voice barely audible above the din of the city. "What are you doing here?" I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. The last thing I had expected was to run into Samantha on the streets of New York City, and yet here she was, a ghost from my past haunting me once again. I was just on my way home," I stammered, struggling to find the right words. "What about you? Are you okay?" Samantha nodded, but there was a sadness in her eyes that belied her words. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Just taking a walk." I wanted to press her for more information, to delve deeper into the mystery of her sudden appearance, but something held me back. Perhaps it was the fear of reopening old wounds or the knowledge that some questions were better left unasked. Instead, we stood there in awkward silence, two strangers bound together by a shared history that neither of us could ever truly escape. And as the city bustled around us, I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden beneath Samantha's stoic facade. But before I could voice my thoughts, Samantha's phone rang, breaking the spell of silence that had enveloped us. With a murmured apology, she hastily excused herself, disappearing into the crowd before I had a chance to respond. Alone once again, I watched her retreating figure, a sense of unease settling over me like a heavy blanket. There was something about Samantha's behavior that didn't sit right with me, a feeling that refused to be ignored. With a sigh, I continued on my way, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy on my shoulders. Little did I know, this chance encounter would set into motion a chain of events that would forever change the course of my life. The memory of my unexpected encounter with Samantha lingered in my mind long after our paths had diverged on the busy streets of New York City. Try as I might to push it aside, the nagging sense of unease refused to be ignored like a persistent itch that demanded to be scratched. As I entered the familiar confines of our apartment, the warmth and comfort of home enveloped me like a comforting embrace. Kate was in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she hummed a tune under her breath, the sound filling the air with a sense of tranquility. "Hey, you're home early," she remarked, turning to greet me with a smile as I entered the room. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile, the weight of my thoughts pressing down on me like a leaden blanket. "Yeah, just had a long day at the office," I replied, trying to sound casual despite the turmoil brewing within me. Kate raised an eyebrow, her gaze piercing as she studied my face. "Are you sure everything's okay?" she asked, her concern palpable in her voice. I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Kate was my rock, my confidant. But some things were better left unsaid. "I'm fine, really," I assured her, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Just tired, I guess." She seemed to accept my answer, though the furrow in her brow told me she wasn't entirely convinced. With a nod, she turned back to her cooking, the sizzle of the pan filling the room with a tantalizing aroma. As I watched her work, a wave of guilt washed over me like a tsunami crashing against the shore. Here was Kate, the woman who had stood by my side through thick and thin, oblivious to the turmoil raging within me. How could I keep something from her, something that threatened to tear us apart at the seams? But then I shook my head, banishing the thought from my mind. I couldn't burden Kate with my troubles, not when she had her own worries to contend with. No. It was better to keep my doubts and fears to myself, to spare her the pain of knowing the truth. But even as I resolved to keep my distance from Samantha, the temptation proved too great to resist. She haunted my thoughts day and night, a specter from the past that refused to be banished. It started innocently enough, a casual text here, a friendly phone call there. At first, I told myself it was just to check in, to see how she was doing after our chance encounter on the street. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was drawn to Samantha like a moth to a flame, unable to resist the pull of her magnetic presence. As our conversations grew more frequent, the lines between friendship and something more blurred beyond recognition. We laughed and joked like old times, reminiscing about the past as if nothing had ever changed. But beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension, a simmering passion that threatened to boil over at any moment. I knew I was playing with fire, dancing on the edge of a precipice that threatened to swallow me whole. But the thrill of danger only added to the allure, fueling my reckless abandon as I allowed myself to be drawn deeper into Samantha's orbit. It was exhilarating, intoxicating, like a drug coursing through my veins, dulling the pain and uncertainty that had plagued me for so long. With Samantha, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years, my senses heightened by the forbidden nature of our relationship. But even as I reveled in the heady rush of adrenaline, a voice in the back of my mind warned me of the consequences of my actions. I was playing a dangerous game, one that could destroy everything I had worked so hard to build, and yet I couldn't bring myself to stop. The pull of Samantha was too strong, too irresistible to resist. I was like a moth to a flame, drawn inexorably closer with each passing moment, heedless of the flames that threatened to consume me. As I lay in bed that night, the weight of guilt pressing down on me like a leaden blanket, I knew I was treading on thin ice. But even as I wrestled with my conscience, a part of me reveled in the danger, craving the adrenaline rush that came with dancing on the edge of oblivion. Little did I know, my reckless pursuit of temptation would soon plunge me into a maelstrom of chaos and despair, threatening to tear apart everything I held dear. But by then it would be too late to turn back. The die had been cast, and I was powerless to stop the inevitable descent into darkness. The days blurred together in a haze of excitement and uncertainty as my clandestine interactions with Samantha became increasingly frequent. Each encounter left me feeling exhilarated yet guilty, like a man walking a tightrope suspended between heaven and hell. Our meetings were always casual, innocuous even, but beneath the surface, there was an undeniable tension that crackled in the air like electricity. We laughed and joked like old times, trading stories and reminiscing about the past as if nothing had ever changed. But deep down, we both knew the truth. There was an unspoken attraction between us, a simmering passion that threatened to boil over at any moment. And try as we might to deny it, the pull of desire was too strong to resist. It was on one such evening, as we sat together in a cozy cafe nestled in the heart of the city, that the dam finally burst, unleashing a flood of emotions that had long been simmering beneath the surface. We had been talking about our respective lives, catching up on the years that had passed since we last saw each other. Samantha's marriage to Alex had crumbled beneath the weight of resentment and regret, leaving her adrift in a sea of uncertainty. "I never thought it would end like this," she confessed, her voice tinged with sadness. "I thought Alex was the man I was meant to spend the rest of my life with. But now..." Her voice trailed off, lost in the depths of her own despair. I reached out to touch her hand, a silent gesture of comfort and solidarity. "I'm sorry, Samantha," I said softly, my heart aching for the pain she had endured. "No one deserves to go through what you've been through." She looked up at me, her eyes swimming with tears. "Thank you, John," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "You've always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could utter a word, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to mine in a searing kiss that left me breathless and dizzy with desire. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as we lost ourselves in each other, the world around us fading into insignificance as passion consumed us like a wildfire raging out of control. But as quickly as it had begun, the moment passed, leaving us both gasping for air and struggling to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that threatened to overwhelm us. "I'm sorry," Samantha whispered, her eyes filled with regret. "I shouldn't have done that." I reached out to touch her face, my fingers trembling with emotion. "Don't be," I said softly, my voice barely more than a whisper. "I wanted it too." And with those words hanging in the air between us, we both knew that there was no turning back. The flames of desire had been ignited, and try as we might to extinguish them, they burned with an intensity that defied logic and reason. In the days that followed, our relationship deepened and intensified, each encounter more passionate and intense than the last. We met in secret, stealing moments of stolen bliss in the shadows of the city, our love a forbidden flame that burned bright and hot. But even as we reveled in the ecstasy of our newfound passion, a sense of guilt gnawed at the edges of my conscience. I knew I was betraying Kate, the woman who had stood by my side through thick and thin, but try as I might to push her from my mind, her memory lingered like a specter, haunting me with its accusing gaze. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to end things with Samantha. The pull of desire was too strong, too intoxicating to resist. I was like a moth to a flame, drawn inexorably closer with each passing moment, heedless of the consequences that awaited me on the other side. It was only a matter of time before the truth came to light, before the carefully constructed facade of my life came crashing down around me like a house of cards. But by then, it would be too late to turn back. The die had been cast, and I was powerless to stop the inevitable descent into darkness. Stay tuned for part 2. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to ensure you don't miss out on the thrilling continuation.